it's a bit tragic that when you go to United States, you see a crumbling infrastructure. You see bridges collapsing in Pittsburgh. You see bridges collapsing in Baltimore. And you wonder, why are you spending so much money on aircraft carriers, fighting unnecessary wars like Iraq, when you have much more pressing needs at home? And indeed, surprisingly, a relatively conservative American thinker like Niall Ferguson has said in a recent article that we Americans are the Soviets now. And he's right, because if you look at it, in the old Soviet Union, what was striking was declining life expectancy. In the United States today, declining life expectancy. In the old Soviet Union, rising infant mortality. In the United States, rising infant mortality. In the old Soviet Union, stagnant living standards for the bottom 50%. In the United States, stagnant living standards for the bottom 50%. It's actually quite striking. So in a country that has so many domestic challenges, why not spend the time and effort to rebuild your own society? Because at the end of the day, as George Kennan said, when talking about the Cold War, and I mentioned this in my book, Has China Won?
I remember.
That the outcome of the war will be determined not by your military weapons, but by the spiritual vitality of your own society. And American society is clearly a very deeply troubled society. Only a deeply troubled society would re-elect a man like Donald Trump as president. And then by contrast, if you look at China, if you go to China, you'll be stunned by the infrastructure that you see there. And the living standards of the Chinese people have improved more in the past 30 years than they have in the past 3,000 years. So that's the real battle. So if the United States could focus more on improving the living standards of its people, less on projecting power overseas, it'd be better for the United States and maybe even better for the world.